Welcome to Sleepy Music Tales. Hello, dear listeners, and welcome to my channel where the world slows down and dreams take flight in the quiet embrace of the night. I'm Theo, your storyteller, and I'm so grateful you've joined me here. This is a space of peace, a refuge from the noise of the day, where time dissolves and only the warmth of story and sound remain. Each tale we share is woven with care, designed to cradle you in comfort, soothe your mind, and gently guide you into deep, restful sleep. Tonight, as you listen, you'll be enveloped in the soft hum of healing frequencies, gentle waves of sound created to calm your spirit, ease tension, and bring balance to your body and soul. Imagine each note as a whisper of serenity, wrapping around you like a cozy blanket, dissolving stress, quieting your thoughts, and lulling you into a state of pure relaxation. But before we begin, take a moment to settle in. Find the most comfortable position, adjust your pillows just right, and let the weight of the day melt away. Inhale deeply, feeling the cool night air fill your lungs, and exhale slowly, releasing all that no longer serves you. This moment is yours, to rest, to dream, to simply be. Tonight's story is one of devotion and destiny, a tale of love so strong that even the tides of fate could not wash it away. It is a story of longing, of patience, and of a promise that endured beyond the bounds of time. So now, close your eyes, let the world fade, and allow me to take you on a journey into the timeless, enchanting world of the 12 Huntsmen. Let's begin. Once upon a time, in a kingdom nestled between rolling green hills and vast golden fields, there lived a noble prince whose heart belonged to a maiden of unmatched grace and kindness. She was not just beautiful, with eyes as deep as the midnight sky and a voice as soft as a summer breeze, but she possessed a spirit of warmth and wisdom that made the prince's love for her grow stronger with each passing day. One evening, beneath the silver glow of the moon, the prince took her hands in his and whispered a promise. No matter what the future holds, my heart is yours alone. When the time comes, I will take you as my wife, and we shall rule together side by side. With these words, he placed a delicate golden ring upon her finger, a symbol of his unwavering devotion. She smiled, her heart brimming with joy, for she too loved him beyond measure. Their days together were filled with laughter and whispered dreams of the life they would share. They walked hand in hand through the royal gardens, where roses bloomed in shades of crimson and ivory. They sat beneath towering oak trees, listening to the rustling leaves, as if they carried the secrets of the world. In those moments, nothing seemed impossible. But fate, ever unpredictable, had other plans. News soon arrived from the castle. The prince's father, the king, had fallen gravely ill. His condition worsened by the day, and his only wish was to see his son before his time came to an end. With a heavy heart, the prince bid farewell to his beloved, promising her that he would return soon. "Wait for me," he said softly, brushing a stray curl from her cheek. "I will come back to you." As he rode swiftly through the vast countryside, his mind was clouded with worry. He loved his father dearly, and the thought of losing him weighed upon his soul. Upon reaching the royal palace, he was met with an air of sorrow. His father lay weak in his grand chamber, his once strong hands trembling as he reached for his son. "My dearest child," the king said, his voice frail yet filled with authority, "before I leave this world, I must ensure the kingdom's future. You must marry and take a queen, a woman of noble blood, chosen to secure peace and prosperity for our land." The prince's heart clenched. He had already given his love, his word, and his ring to another, but his father's pleading eyes, filled with both love and desperation, left him torn. "Promise me, my son," the king continued, "that you will take as your wife the princess of the neighboring kingdom, for this union will bring strength to our people." Bound by duty and the weight of responsibility, the prince could not refuse. He knelt before his father and whispered the words he dreaded most. "Yes, dear father, your will shall be done." The moment the promise left his lips, an unbearable sorrow settled within him. He longed for the woman who held his heart, but the burden of his royal lineage now stood in the way of his own desires. He remained in the palace, carrying out his duties, yet each sunrise only deepened the ache inside him. Meanwhile, far away in her quiet home, the maiden waited. She watched the horizon each evening, hoping to see the silhouette of her beloved riding back to her. But as days turned into weeks, and weeks into months, no word came. Instead, she heard the whispers of travelers, rumors of an impending royal wedding. The prince, the love of her life, was to marry another. Her heart shattered like fragile glass. Had he forgotten his promise? Had his love faded so easily? No. She refused to believe it. Something was amiss, and she knew she had to uncover the truth. With quiet determination, she wiped her tears and steeled herself for the journey ahead. If fate would not bend to love, then love would have to challenge fate itself. The maiden sat by her window, gazing out at the distant hills where the sun melted into the horizon. Her heart ached with longing, her mind clouded with unanswered questions. The whispers of the kingdom had reached her ears. The prince, the man she had once believed would be her future, was preparing to wed another. At first she refused to believe it. The man who had held her hands beneath the stars, who had spoken of forever with a voice as steady as the earth beneath their feet. How could he betray her so easily? Had love meant nothing to him? But no. Deep within her soul, she felt a truth that others could not see. He was not a man who broke promises, nor was he one who would cast away love without reason. Something had happened, something beyond his control, and if she wished to uncover it, she could not simply sit and wait for answers to come to her. She had to go to him, yet she knew that simply appearing at the castle gates as a sorrowful, forsaken lover would do her no good. The world of kings and queens did not yield to broken hearts. If she wished to stand before him once more, she would need a plan, a way to remain by his side without revealing who she truly was. She spent days thinking, pacing, watching the world outside her window until, at last, inspiration struck. If fate demanded she stay away, then she would become someone else. She called upon 11 of her closest companions, women who had stood by her through childhood, each as loyal as they were brave. "I need your help," she told them, and without hesitation they agreed. Together they devised a plan that would take them into the very heart of the kingdom where the prince resided. From the finest tailors, they commissioned 12 identical suits. Coats of deep forest green, boots sturdy enough for the roughest terrain, and belts lined with blades sharp as moonlight. Their flowing locks were tucked beneath caps, and with steady hands they bound their figures, shaping themselves into the image of 12 noble huntsmen. Once their disguises were complete, they set forth on their journey. The road to the palace was long, winding through thick forests and across glistening rivers. Each step carried her closer to the man she had loved, yet further from the woman she had once been. She was no longer a maiden lost in sorrow. She was a hunter, a traveler, someone who would carve her own fate. At last, the grand castle rose before them, its towers piercing the sky like ancient sentinels. When they arrived at the palace gates, they were met with questioning eyes. "Who are you?" a royal guard inquired. She stepped forward, lowering her voice just enough to mask its natural softness. "We are huntsmen of great skill, and we have heard that the prince seeks the finest among us to serve in his court. We wish to offer us service." The guards exchanged glances, for indeed it was true. The prince had sought to build a new company of huntsmen, men swift of foot and keen of sight. Seeing no reason to turn them away, the guards led them into the castle. The great hall was grander than she remembered. High ceilings adorned with golden chandeliers stretched above them, and the scent of polished wood and burning embers filled the air. Then he entered. The prince. Her breath caught in her throat as she saw him again for the first time in so many months. He looked the same, yet different. The weight of duty pressed upon his shoulders, and though his lips did not tremble, his eyes carried a sadness she had never seen before. "Who stands before me?" he asked, his voice even, yet distant. "We are your new huntsmen, my lord," she answered, bowing her head slightly. For a moment, she feared he would recognize her, that his gaze would pierce through the disguise and see the woman beneath. But he did not. He looked upon her and her companions as strangers, nodding in approval before giving his command. "You shall serve in my court, then," he declared. "You will accompany me on the hunt and stand as my trusted men." Her heart twisted, but she did not falter. She had made it here. She was close, and now she would wait. Though he had not seen her for who she was, she had seen something in him, a flicker of something buried beneath his regal exterior. Perhaps, just perhaps, love had not been lost after all. The days in the prince's court passed swiftly, yet each one carried a quiet tension that only the disguised princess could feel. Dressed in the attire of a noble huntsman, she stood beside the prince, observing him in silence as he moved through the great halls and rode out into the forests. He spoke little, his words measured, and his mind simply lost in thought. To the court, he was simply a king-to-be, a man preparing for his future, but she saw the way his shoulders tensed when he was alone, the way his gaze drifted toward the horizon as if searching for something or someone. She longed to reach out to him, to whisper her name and tell him that she had not abandoned their love. But she knew that revealing herself too soon could jeopardize everything. She had come this far by her wits, and she would not falter now. Yet there was another in the castle who was not so easily deceived, the prince's lion. A great, noble beast who had been by his side since childhood, had taken a deep interest in the new huntsman. The creature had watched them with steady, golden eyes since the day they had arrived, its great tail swishing slowly as it observed their movements. It was no ordinary lion. It had been raised within the palace and possessed an intelligence far beyond that of an ordinary beast. It sensed things others did not, and the princess could feel its gaze lingering on her longer than the rest. One evening, as the huntsmen stood assembled in the great hall, the lion approached the prince and spoke in a deep rumbling voice that only the prince could understand. "My lord, these huntsmen are not what they seem." The prince turned to his trusted companion, his brow furrowing. "What do you mean?" "They are not men," the lion replied. "They are women in disguise." The prince laughed softly, shaking his head. "That cannot be," he said. "I have seen them with my own eyes, heard their voices, and watched them ride and hunt with skill beyond many of my men." The lion did not waver. "Then test them," he urged. "Scatter peas across the floor of the great hall. A true man will step upon them without notice, but a woman, no matter how well disguised, will tread lightly and the peas will roll beneath her feet." The prince considered this carefully. Though he did not doubt his lion's wisdom, he could not believe that the huntsmen, who had proven themselves in skill and loyalty, could be anything other than what they claimed to be. Still, curiosity tugged at him. And so, that night, as the palace grew quiet and the torches burned low, the prince ordered his servants to scatter peas across the great hall, arranging them where the huntsmen would pass through the following morning. He gave no reason for his command, and none dared to question it. By dawn, the test was set. As the 12 huntsmen entered the hall, the princess felt something odd beneath her boots, a slight shift, a subtle movement. She glanced down ever so briefly and realized what had been done. Peas, tiny and round, lay scattered across the floor. Her heart quickened, but she kept her composure. With practiced ease, she walked forward, ensuring that her steps were strong, her boots pressing firmly into the floor. She had trained herself well, and so had her companions. Not a single pea moved beneath their feet. The prince watched intently, waiting for the telltale sign of hesitation or misstep, but none came. The huntsmen moved as they always had, their posture unwavering, their steps as firm as any soldier. The lion, watching from the shadows, growled softly in frustration. "They are clever," he admitted. "They knew of the test. But they are still women, my lord." The prince, however, shook his head. "I see nothing but loyal men before me," he said. "You have been mistaken, my friend." The lion narrowed its golden eyes, but said nothing more. It was not so easily deceived, and it would not surrender its suspicions just yet. Several days later, the lion approached the prince once more. "You did not believe my words before," it said. "But I ask you to try again. This time, place spinning wheels in their chambers. No man has any interest in such things, but a woman, no matter how disciplined, will be drawn to them, even if only for a glance." The prince sighed, reluctant to doubt those who had served him well, but the lion's certainty troubled him, and so he gave the order once more. That night, as the huntsmen retired to their rooms, spinning wheels were placed in each chamber. The princess entered hers and froze at the sight. The wooden wheel stood in the corner, its polished frame gleaming faintly in the candlelight. It was a beautiful thing, simple yet familiar. A memory stirred. Long afternoons spent in her childhood home, watching her mother spin fine threads of silk and wool. Her fingers twitched with the urge to reach out, to run them along the smooth surface of the wheel. But then she remembered. She straightened, turning away from the wheel without a second thought. It was a trap, just as the peas had been. She would not be fooled. The next morning, the prince summoned his huntsmen and looked at them closely. "Did you sleep well?" he asked casually. "We did, my lord," the princess replied, her voice as steady as ever. "Did you notice anything unusual in your chambers?" "Nothing at all," she said, meeting his gaze without flinching. The prince exhaled, glancing at the lion, whose tail flicked in irritation. "You see," the prince murmured, "your suspicions are unfounded." But the lion, wise and patient, did not relent. "They have passed your tests," it admitted. "But mark my words, there will come a moment when the truth will reveal itself." The prince, though unconvinced, felt an unease settle within him. He did not wish to doubt those who had served him loyally. Yet the lion had never been wrong before, and deep in his heart, though he did not understand why, he found himself glancing more often at one particular huntsman. The one whose eyes held a depth he could not explain, whose voice stirred something within him that felt both familiar and distant. He pushed the thought aside, for now the truth remained hidden. But how much longer could it stay so? Days turned into weeks, and still the 12 huntsmen remained in the prince's court, standing by his side as loyal attendants. The princess, hidden behind her disguise, watched him in quiet longing, her heart aching for the love they once shared. Though he had not recognized her, she felt certain that a part of him still carried the echoes of their past. Yet, she dared not reveal herself. Not yet. She had outwitted the tests set before her, the scattered peas, the spinning wheels. But she knew that fate had a way of uncovering even the most carefully hidden truths. She had come this far by strength and will alone, but she also knew that the heart was a fragile thing, and sometimes, no matter how much one tried, it could not help but betray its own secrets. And that moment was fast approaching. One morning, as the palace prepared for a great festival, the princess found herself standing at the edge of the grand hall, watching as servants adorned the walls with golden tapestries and fresh garlands of flowers. The air buzzed with excitement, for this was no ordinary celebration. It was the final gathering before the prince's wedding. A wedding that would break her heart. She had known this day would come, yet still the reality of it struck her like a blade to the chest. The prince, the man she had loved with every piece of her soul, would soon take another as his bride. And she, disguised as nothing more than a humble huntsman, could do nothing but watch. Her hands trembled as she gripped the hilt of the blade at her belt. She had thought herself strong, had believed she could endure whatever fate had in store, but now she felt something unraveling inside her, a sorrow so deep it threatened to consume her entirely. She turned quickly, retreating from the hall before the tears could fall, but fate had already set its course. As she stepped into the corridor, her vision blurred, her breath unsteady. She felt the world tilt beneath her feet, the weight of her grief, of the months spent hiding, of the love she had lost. It all became too much. A sharp gasp escaped her lips as darkness swirled at the edges of her vision. Her body swayed, and before she could stop it, she collapsed to the ground. The sound echoed through the hall, and almost at once, footsteps rushed toward her. Voices called out, but she barely heard them. And then, through the haze, his voice. "You all right?" A gentle hand touched her shoulder, and with great effort, she opened her eyes. The prince knelt beside her, concern etched into his face. His brow furrowed as he looked at her, really looked at her for the first time since she had arrived at the palace. And in that moment, something shifted. She saw the flicker of recognition in his gaze, the way his breath caught as if he had just stumbled upon something lost but deeply familiar. His hand hovered near hers, uncertain, yet drawn to her in a way that words could not explain. And then, as his eyes traced her face, the curve of her lips, the shape of her chin, the way her lashes trembled against her skin, his gaze fell to something else. Ring. Not just any ring, his ring. The very one he had placed on her finger long ago, beneath the glow of the moon, when he had sworn his heart to her and promised that nothing would ever part them. His breath caught in his throat. "Where did you get this?" His voice was barely above a whisper, but in it was the weight of realization, of something breaking free inside him. The princess did not answer. She could not. Her disguise had unraveled, not in the way she had planned, not with clever words or careful timing, but in the way all true things reveal themselves, with a single, undeniable truth. She was his, and at last he knew. Silence stretched between them, heavy with all the unspoken words, the lost time, the love that had been buried beneath duty and expectation. The prince's fingers brushed against the ring, then against her hand, as if testing whether she was real or just another dream slipping through his grasp. And then, at last, he spoke. "It's you." A single tear slipped down her cheek. She had spent so long pretending, so long hiding, that she had almost forgotten what it felt like to simply be. But here, in the quiet space between them, she felt it. She was seen. She was known. And for the first time since this journey began, she knew that she had found her way home. The great hall was silent. The prince knelt before the woman he had once loved, the woman he had unknowingly cast away, and now the woman who had stood beside him all along. His heart pounded as he stared into her eyes, no longer clouded by disguise. He saw her, the woman he had promised his heart to, the one he had thought lost to him forever. "It's you," he whispered again, as if saying it once was not enough to make it real. Tears glistened in the princess's eyes, but she did not look away. She had spent months hiding, disguising herself in shadows. Yet now, she stood fully in the light of his gaze. She had feared this moment, feared that when he finally saw her, he would turn away. But instead, there was something else in his expression. Not anger, not regret. Love. The realization hit him like a flood, washing away the doubts, the duties, the obligations that had bound him for so long. He had spent his days preparing for a future he had never wanted, convincing himself that the love he had once known was simply a dream of the past. But now, as he looked at her, he knew the truth. She had never left his heart. Rising to his feet, he took her hands in his, cradling them as if they were something fragile, something precious. His thumb brushed against the ring, the very one he had given her all those months ago, the one she had never taken off. "How could I not have known?" he murmured. "How could I have been so blind?" The princess smiled, though tears still shimmered in her eyes. "Because you were a prince before you were a man," she said softly. "And you did what a prince was expected to do." His chest ached at her words. She did not say them with anger nor with bitterness, but with understanding. She had always understood him, even when the world had tried to pull them apart. A sudden thought struck him. "The wedding," he breathed. "It cannot happen." He turned, already moving toward the doors, his mind racing. He had allowed duty to chain him for too long, but he would not let it steal his happiness. The princess, his princess, was here. He would not lose her again. The preparations nearly complete. The court was already gathering. The preparations nearly complete. The bride, his bride, though she had never truly been his, was waiting in her chambers, unaware that her fate had just been rewritten. The prince strode through the palace, his heart steady, his resolve unshaken. When he reached the chamber where his betrothed waited, he did not hesitate. He stepped inside, meeting the gaze of the woman who had been promised to him. She was beautiful, regal, everything a queen was meant to be. But she was not his queen. He took a breath, steadying himself. "Forgive me," he said, his voice firm yet gentle, "but I cannot marry you." The princess's eyes widened, but she did not speak. She had seen it too, the look in his eyes, the way his heart had never truly been hers. And though she had been raised as a royal, trained in the ways of diplomacy, she had also known love. "You have found her," she said softly, not as a question, but as a truth. The prince nodded. A long silence stretched between them before at last she sighed. "Then go to her." Gratitude filled his chest, but he wasted no time with words. He turned and left the chamber, his heart pulling him toward the woman he had loved from the very beginning. By the time he reached the great hall, the court had gathered, whispers rippling through the grand space. The 12 Huntsmen, now revealed for who they truly were, stood waiting. And at the center of them all, the princess. The prince crossed the distance between them, his steps sure, his purpose clear. Without hesitation, he took her hands once more, drawing her close. "You are mine," he said, voice steady with the certainty he had denied himself for so long, "and I am yours, No one in the world can change that. The princess let out a shaky breath, a tear slipping down her cheek. Then take me home. And so, with the court watching in breathless silence, the prince did the only thing his heart demanded. He kissed her. A kiss of love lost and found. A kiss that rewrote fate itself. And from that moment on, nothing could part them again. At its heart, The 12 Huntsmen is a tale of love, resilience, and the power of authenticity. It reminds us that true love is not easily broken by time, circumstance, or expectation, but rather it endures through trials and uncertainty, in a world that often demands conformity and sacrifice for the sake of duty. This story teaches us the importance of staying true to our hearts, even when the path ahead is uncertain. One of the most powerful lessons we can take from this tale is the value of perseverance. The princess does not resign herself to sorrow when she learns of the prince's impending marriage. Instead, she takes action, using intelligence and courage to stay close to him. In modern life, we often encounter obstacles that seem insurmountable, whether in love, career, or personal growth. But this story reminds us that determination and belief in ourselves can guide us toward the future we desire. Additionally, the 12 Huntsmen speaks to the power of intuition. The prince does not recognize the princess immediately, but deep within him something stirs, a feeling he cannot ignore. In today's fast-paced world, we are often encouraged to rely solely on logic, but this tale reminds us that our instincts, emotions, and deeper knowing are just as vital in guiding us toward what is right. Above all, this story teaches us that love, in its truest form, will always find its way home. And so, our story comes to a gentle close. Now, as the echoes of this tale fade into the quiet of the night, allow yourself to drift deeper into rest. Let go of the thoughts of the day, knowing that there is nothing more to do, nothing more to worry about. This moment is yours, soft, peaceful, and calm. Take a deep breath in. Feel the air fill your lungs, cool and refreshing. And now, slowly exhale, releasing any lingering tension. With each breath, imagine yourself sinking deeper into the comfort of your bed, your body growing heavier, more at ease. If your mind is still restless, try this. Gently bring your attention to the rhythm of your breathing. With every inhale, welcome peace. With every exhale, let go of anything that no longer serves you. Feel your shoulders relax, your arms and legs becoming wonderfully light, as if floating in the soothing warmth of sleep. Now, let the soft healing frequencies embrace you. These gentle tones are here to restore your energy, calm your nervous system, and help your body heal from the day's demands. Trust that your body knows how to replenish itself, that every sound, every vibration is guiding you toward deep, restful sleep. You are safe, you are at peace, and you are exactly where you need to be. Good night, dear listener. May your dreams be kind, your sleep be deep, and may you wake with a heart full of light.